Call to order the School Modernization Committee. It is Wednesday, February 19th. Marilyn.
Okay, Ms. Kemp.
Here.
Mr. Martinez. Ms. Bates.
Here.
Mr. Matt Bowman. Rich Gussenberg.
Here.
Ms. Harrigan.
Here.
Mr. Martelli.
Here.
Mr. Neff.
Here.
Ms. Nichols.
Here.
Mr. Perugini. Mr. Talbot.
Here.
Mr. Orrs.
Here.
We have a quorum present.
Okay, please stand for the pledge. Flag to your right or behind you. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everybody. Good to be at Chapman School for our meeting tonight. Before we dig into kind of the agenda, do you want to get approvals on our last meeting minutes from February 3rd?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Great, thank you. So we are happy to have Principal Burns here tonight. She is going to provide us with some information about Chapman School and give us a tour. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Fantastic. Well, welcome to Chapman School.
Thank you, sir.
I'm really happy to have you here. Be sure to take advantage of some chocolate chip cookies. I don't think every school does that. And some coffee. I just want to be on the priority list for the modernization plan. But I'm thrilled to have you all here and be able to give you a tour of the school tonight. Let me see if we can get here. And I am Diana Burns. This is my second year here at Chapman School. I travel all the way from Westbrook every day. I have an hour commute and it's worth it because this is one of the best school districts I've ever been a part of. So you'll hear me brag quite a bit this evening about Chapman and Cheshire. Our mission statement is that we're a community that's committed to providing a care and safe learning environment where all students can strive to reach their fullest potential academically and as community contributors. And before we start our tour, I just want to tell you a little bit about Chapman School. We're a kindergarten through 6th grade elementary school. As of today, we have 314 students. We are one of the smallest elementary schools in Cheshire, and we're an early school. We start our day at 7:55 and we dismiss at 2:35. And because I have a captive audience, I can't help myself by just telling you a few things about Chapman School. We are the #1 highest rated elementary school in New Haven County for 2020. We're really proud about that. We rank 38 out of 572 best schools in Connecticut, and Chapman teachers rate #7 out of 572 schools in the state of Connecticut for being the highest qualified and most effective educators. And our SBAC scores, we're just gearing up to take SBAC assessments again next month, but last year we had incredible success. Overall, we ranked #5 in the entire state, and we were #1 in our DERG, which is towns like us. And Cheshire Public Schools, as a district, we rank in the top 500 schools in the United States. So hence, I'm really proud to be part of such a strong team. The teachers here really take what they do very seriously. They love to educate. We love to see students learn. And, you know, we're really glad to have a captive audience to kind of show off our school building and what we do every day here. So if you're ready to get on your feet, I'm going to take you around. The good news is you won't have to put in as many steps as the high school tour. They're a little bit smaller. So right now you are in the Chapman Library, and a couple things I can tell you about the library is this is one of many spaces within the building that unfortunately is not ADA compliant. We do not have any handicap accessibility to this room or the rooms that are down here at this level. So you all took a staircase down. There is no elevator in the building. And I always tell the story that when I first arrived here at Cheshire, Marlene Solano gave me a tour of the building, and at the end of the tour I said to her, "So where's the elevator?" And she chuckled and said, "Oh, there's no elevator." And I said, "Well then, what happens if you have a student that's disabled or on crutches?" And she said, "Well, Diana, they get on their bottoms and they scoot up one step at a time." And that's exactly really what happens at Chapman School. So the other part about this space here in the library is it lacks what's called natural surveillance. There's no windows. So when students and the teachers are in this part of the building, they don't have any visual ability to see what's happening in the rest of the building, and that's a safety concern. So if something is happening outside, they are not aware of it. If something's happening in the building, unless they get an announcement, they are not aware of what's happening in the building. So they're very closed off down here. Also in the library, our librarian tells me all the time, you know, storage is an issue, and climate control. This is one of the rooms in the building that is air conditioned. However, it gets so cold that they often have to turn the air conditioning off, or then it gets too hot and there aren't any windows to open in the winter time to actually cool it down. The other important aspect of this space is there's not a direct exit. All the exit signs you see lead into other areas that you then have to go and exit out of. So you can't get outside very quickly from this space. So follow me. And the desktop computers that filled up this space eventually got very old, and it wasn't cost effective to actually replace them, especially with the Chromebook carts that the classrooms are now using. So this became a space that we kind of didn't really know what to do with. We were hoping to put some makerspace opportunities in this space, but what ended up actually happening, and you'll hear me talk about this throughout our tour, is at Chapman we are limited with space. We don't have enough rooms for all the services we provide. So our occupational therapist actually and our physical therapists use this space to service children. So that's why you'll see that there are some trampolines and there's balls and equipment around here. This certainly is not an ideal space for them, but they make the best of it. Many times they'll take children into the hallway, into the cafeteria if it's free, if they need more space, but this is what it's being used for at the moment. And I'm going to take you through this door, which is going to lead to our band room, so if you just follow me. Well, I'm sure the instruments gave it away, but you have now entered the Chapman Band Room. This is where our band lessons happen. Unfortunately, it's very separate from our music room, which we wish that they were together. And another downside of the band room being located here is that oftentimes when our librarian is teaching library classes, the band is happening at the same time. So they're competing and they do the best they can. And again, back to the fact that it's not handicap accessible. So when students are on crutches or they're having trouble getting throughout the building, getting them down here with their instrument, we usually need some extra personnel to help them get to the band room and then get back upstairs to their classroom. Follow me. But that will give you an idea of how close the band room is to the library. And also behind those double doors, and we'll be visiting over there in a minute, is our cafeteria. And that's the other part that's really a struggle, is during the lunch waves, the cafeteria is very loud, and that's definitely interfering with library classes or band lessons are going on. And myself and the teachers, when we have faculty meetings and professional development sessions here in the library, the YMCA uses the cafeteria for the after-school program. So once again, we kind of battle the noise interference. I wanted to point out to you these two offices here. One of them is the librarian's office. The other one is now our school psychologist office. We needed to find a space for her where she could have her own office to work with students privately. Many times she's doing a lot of testing. You can see that there's paper over the glass windows to provide privacy. Having a school psychologist in a glass office is not ideal. Occasionally, you know, she might have a student in her office that she's de-escalating who's very angry. So we don't love the idea of the glass walls, but for right now, that's the spot that gives her privacy and enough room to work. But ideally, I would love to have an office for her up on the main floor, close to our school counselor who they collaborate with, certainly close to me. But for the time being, unless we move her into a closet, that's the best that we can do. I'm going to take you out this door just to show you the faculty lounge, and then we're going to come back here and enter into the cafeteria. So welcome to the faculty lounge. This is where teachers eat their lunch. It also doubles as a workstation for teachers. On the other side of that barrier there are their mailboxes. There's a copier machine, our laminator. So this is also a space where they come to get some of their preparation work done for their lessons. It's really a lovely space, and it was renovated and given a facelift just a couple years ago. So some of the furniture in here is pretty new, and the paint is not too old on the walls. Unfortunately, we wish this space was bigger. It's not big enough for us to have a faculty meeting or professional development here, but it is a good size for the different lunchways that the teachers have. Again, not handicap accessible, and there's only one, kind of way in and out of this room here. And no natural surveillance. So if teachers are eating lunch here, if something should erupt in the building or outside on our campus, the only way that they would know about it is through our intercom system if that was still working, if there was an emergency. We're going to go back out, down the stairs, and we're going to head into the cafeteria next. So welcome to the Chapman Cafeteria. This is actually a very nice sized cafeteria for our needs. Most lunchways, we're not filling up all of the tables unless we have an early dismissal or a day where we're combining some lunchways because of time constraints. You will hear me talk about windows a lot. These windows here and in all the classrooms, they're just very old. They're very drafty. Sometimes they open, sometimes they don't. If you're standing by the window on a very cold day, you will feel it. It's just very hard to regulate the temperature in the lunchroom. The good thing is that, kids are really resilient and they're just happy to be here and eating. It's usually the adults that I hear most of the complaints about when it comes to the windows. And that is the exit that goes out to our playground. And our children travel through those doors to recess and back. It does cross a parking lot, which is not ideal. And then it goes up sort of a hill. So it's not the easiest pathway to the recess area, but it's the most direct pathway. And there is, a direct exit if there was an emergency, and these windows do provide us some natural surveillance. So we're going to go up our staircase to the foyer next. So you are in our main entrance in our foyer. And I want to point out a couple things. You will see right behind Vinny, although he just moved, is a lift for anyone with a disability. This is the only piece of apparatus that we have in the building that would allow somebody with a disability to be able to get from the foyer to the main part of the building. But once you're up there, there is no access for anyone who's handicapped or on crutches to get to our second floor, or of course to get down to the cafeteria, the library, the band room, and all the other rooms downstairs, which of course are used by children every day. I want to just talk a little bit about our drop-off and pickup areas outside, since we're looking out at the parking lot. This was designed many, many years ago. This building is about 70 years old. And I'm guessing that 70 years ago, not as many moms and dads dropped their children off to school and picked them up as they do now. Quite a few parents do that. We have heavy traffic in the morning and the afternoon. You will see I parked my car intentionally, that black shiny car right there. That is where the buses come in every afternoon and every morning. And you will see there's a crosswalk across that lane to the parking lot. In the morning, there are cars coming in, parking in that parking lot, and in the middle of that parking, that is where parents are driving in to stop their car, and children are exiting the car and crossing in front of buses across that crosswalk. So it is heavily, heavily chaperoned. We have a lot of adults out there. We're ready to throw our bodies in front of buses and cars for the children. But it does frighten me, because it's just going to take human error one day on the part of a parent in a car or a bus driver, because there is walking traffic throughout that parking lot and across to be able to get to our front entrance. The side parking lot on the side of the building is for staff parking, but in addition to that, we do have special education buses and other things that pull up over there and sometimes unload and load. So it's definitely not an ideal setup for drop-off and pickup. But at the same time, I want you to know that the district worked with the Cheshire Police Department many years ago, and the drop-off and pickup procedures we have in place were developed by them, so they are the safest that they can be for our situation here. But I really don't love the idea that children have to cross a lane where buses are coming in. The other thing that we are always working really hard on is in the afternoon, sometimes parents don't really want to get out of their car to sign their child out for pickup. So they put their child down as a walker, and we believe that their child is walking, but what we're finding happens quite often is the parent is actually parked in the parking lot, so the child is walking to the car. So they're walking by themselves without us as adults chaperoning them through a parking lot where cars are parking and leaving and coming to their parked car. So we're constantly looking for that, asking moms and dads to please get out of the car, please come in and sign out your child, because we really need you to walk them across the walk to the car. So it's created some not the best ideal situations. Our foyer could be bigger. It's very crowded in the morning when everyone's entering school, and certainly at dismissal time. These big mats are here for safety. These tiles, as shiny as they are, when they get wet and on humid days, get very, very slippery. It's like an ice skating rink. So I have adults, teachers. We have 2 teachers at the top of the stairs, one down here, and it's just to be having our eyes on children when they hit those wet tiles to make sure that nobody slips and falls. Next, I'd like to take you into our gym. So welcome to the Chapman Gymnasium. This is really our multi-purpose room. Obviously, all of our gym classes are held here, but all of our school-wide assemblies, our Chapman Cheer assemblies, are held here. And anything that we're doing special, our promotion, our Veterans Day assemblies, this is the space that we have that's big enough for the entire student body. This is a small gym compared to most elementary school gyms. It's very narrow. So when I have all of the children in the gym, there's just enough room on the side for teachers to be near and to have parents in the back. But when parents do join us, it's standing room only, and it's very tight in here. And if any of you have been fortunate enough to be here during one of our end of the year promotions, it is usually a good 95 degrees in this gym. No matter how hard we try to keep the shades down and crank the windows on a cool night, this room just doesn't have a whole lot of air movement, so it's very, very warm. I probably feel warm in here right now. I don't know if Rich or Vinny, the other part about this room, and Rich, maybe you can speak to this, is we don't have a natural egress out. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
I mean, ultimately, this gym's, if you measured it by square foot, you might be able to legally put 190 people in here. And how many do you put in for one of your events? Maybe double that?
Well, if you don't tell the fire marshal, it's
well,
probably a little more
the
than
fire
that.
marshal already knows, so we talk about it often. But yeah, there is no natural egress or legal egress out of this specific gym. And it's a big concern to the fire marshal, especially when you are having events. There are really only two exterior exits are these two 6070 doors. But unfortunately, the way it's designed, it goes into the egress path of everyone that is trying to get out of this door. So by fire code, that's a no-no. You should have an independent egress path. We're exploring some options of maybe putting in a sidewalk here to satiate the fire marshal's requirement. But a building of this age, it's it's a typical condition that we face with, especially when we're trying to upgrade the school, renovate the school. Architects come in, provide a drawing set, and we deliver it to the fire marshal, and this school doesn't meet fire code. That's his one-off comment, which is true. So those are the kinds of things that are challenging with a small elementary school like this.
The gym teacher had shared with me the ceilings are very low for a gymnasium, so we have hit the projector many times with basketballs and the fans. He certainly does the best that he can. What is also very difficult is in the springtime when some of his units of study are usually done outside, lacrosse and flag footballs and things like that where you need a good-sized field. When it's a nice day, it works terrific, but when it's rainy and the weather turns, he's unable to teach those same units within this space because it's just not big enough. The other thing I want to point out to you is I'm going to lead you over to the stage, and that those double doors over there is a closet. The gym teacher has very limited space for storage. You'll see some of the gym equipment is in that closet, but it's being shared with ladders and other custodial equipment, and all of the other gym equipment you're going to find behind those red curtains, and it's all being stored on the stage because we don't have any other place to store our gym equipment. So unfortunately, that's what the stage is being used for. So if you come with me, we'll go right up here. I'll show you the stage, and that will put us on the first floor of the building. There's not more space back here. This is the entire stage. So unfortunately, we don't use the stage a whole lot. At promotion we do, and we clear this all off. It gets stored in the hallway, and we try to hide it. But other than that, it's really being used as a place to store, and it's kind of a shame because this is a beautiful stage and we'd love to be able to use it for other purposes. So I wanted to point something out to all of you that's very, very important. So right now, if you were a visitor coming to Chapman School, you would ring our buzzer outside our front door. And the ladies in the office is right here, and you can see how the office is really on this floor of the building. They would look at the cameras, and you know, they would ask you who you're here to visit, and then they would buzz you in. Once an individual is buzzed in, then all bets are kind of off. Because ideally, they need to come up here and go into the office and give us their identification, and that's when we sign them in and clear them to be in our building. But because of the design of the building, once they get through that first set of doors, we actually don't have a way to prevent them from just heading into the gym or heading down the hallway or just bypassing the office altogether. So there are many days that if we can see that so-and-so didn't come into the office, we run into the hallway and we say, oh, hold on, you have to come into the office, and we kind of run after people the best we can. But ideally for safety, that is not ideal. So one of the things that's in the budget right now is to renovate the front part of that area where it would create a man trap, where they would be buzzed in, but they couldn't get through the second set of doors, and that we would have the ability to check their identification where there'd be an individual hall monitor there, and once they cleared, they could then get through those doors and into the school. So I'm hoping that won't be cut out of the budget, but you can certainly appreciate what a safety concern that is.
Just so you know, that was funded in the prior budget.
Oh, perfect. There we go. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And now that you see it with your own eyes, you can see the importance of it for sure. We have second grade classrooms and third grade classrooms in this hallway. And this is our art room, which I'm going to turn the lights on and let you peek inside. It's not a very large art room, and the art teacher has explained to me that one of the challenges that she faces is she's not able to do certain lessons and units with our students because of lack of space and storage. So she doesn't have enough space to store all the art resources and student work. So she explained to me that one of the units of study she really wants to do with some of our students is sculptures, but they're really big and they just don't have the space for it. In addition to that, we do have a kiln, but it's not in the art room. It's actually on the other side of the building, which you're going to see later on in the tour. So when our children are doing clay and pottery, she has to transport those things to the other side of the building, and actually she has to go through the counselor's office to where the kiln is. So that's been something that's not ideal at all, but she's really patient and wonderful about it, and she makes it work. But certainly peek your head in so you can see our art room. She wanted me to point out that some of the tables are duct taped together at the moment, and she would love new furniture. So certainly you can tell as we go through the classes that the classroom furniture is very, very old. It desperately needs to be updated. But of course, it's very expensive to do that, so we do the best we can a little at a time. Any questions about the art room?
How often do the students have art?
They have it once a week. Once a week. All right, follow me. that it is shared. No one really has a room of their own. And unfortunately, there are 2 instructional aides and they service children. Sometimes it's a small group of children, sometimes it's individually. They do their best to kind of try to schedule so they're both not in there at the same time, but that never really works during the entire day. So quite often, one of the instructional aides will take her child that she's servicing down to the old computer lab that I showed you, or they just look for an available space to do their work. So you're welcome to poke your head in and see what one of the resource rooms looks like, and you can get an appreciation of how they're sharing space. Size of the classrooms. This is a first grade classroom. In this first grade classroom, I've been told that some of the windows don't open at all. Some of them do. It's incredibly drafty. Temperature is always an issue throughout the building, trying to regulate it. But feel free to peek in so you can get a sense of what the classrooms look like. You'll see most of the classrooms don't really have that. They just don't have an area for storage. So teachers are really creative with bookcases and bins, and they do their best to create storage on their own. So this is typical. The other second grade classes look just like this. In this hallway, there are 2 third grade classes, but one of the third grade classes I'm going to show you is at the end of the hallway. It's completely separate from the other 2 third grade classrooms. That's not ideal because it really makes it hard for teachers to really collaborate and to have those classes near each other. And a lot of newer school designs, what's very popular now is the design of like a pod area where the classrooms are very close together and they can even lock down in sections of the school. That is something that we are very far away from at Chapman, and you'll see that when I show you the third grade class, how separate it is from the other third grade classes.
Could I interrupt at this
Yes.
point? I'd like to point out that
Sure.
there's no water in any of the classrooms.
Yes.
So if a kid needs a drink of water, or if you're doing a science project or something, it doesn't happen easily. There's a janitor room down the hallway, and I taught here for 17 years, and 17 years at Highland, and the windows here are original windows, or early 1950 windows. I don't know if the teachers are still duct taping them every year, but when I was here, we duct taped the windows every winter because the wind that comes through here is incredible.
Yeah. In Mr. Regali's room, one of the third grade rooms across the hall, the gout around the windows, the rain actually just goes through it. So when it's raining, we have to get the buckets, or else there will be puddles literally on the floor, and that's with the windows shut. So the rain's not coming through the windows, it's actually seeping through the grout. That doesn't happen in this room, but in another room it does. I would say the number one complaint I'm always hearing from teachers is the windows, the windows, the windows. Every time I say, you know, what are your needs? How can I support you? Please get us new windows. So I know the windows are a huge issue, and the temperature regulation is very difficult.
This hallway has 2 first, 2 second, and 2 third then?
Yes, actually, there are 3 second grades this year. There are 2 third grades, 1 third grade over there, and 2 first grades. I'm glad you said that. The other first grade classroom is on the other side of the building.
So this hallway has
1 first grade,
3
3
second,
second, and 2 thirds.
3 third.
Yes.
That, I imagine that changes depending on your enrollment and the number of children in a particular grade?
It does. At this moment in time, and it can change over the summer, we will most likely go to 2 second grades and 3 first grades. So one of the rooms here will most likely become a first grade room, but the other first grade room is still on the other side of the building. And the other third grade room I'm going to show you is in the corner. The other thing I'm just remembering too to point out is that what's unique about an older building like this is you'll see in elementary schools that were built in the last 20 years that they always have 2 exit doors. There's an exit door that goes out to the hallway, but then there's always another door that goes outside. So when we do our safety drills, or if we were in a situation where we needed to get the children out of the building quickly, there's only one way out of this room, and then they're going to have to travel to the nearest exit. If you're upstairs, that means they have to get out into the hallway and go down a stairwell to an exit. So, you know, that's extra minutes that it takes for our children to evacuate the building. Yes?
How often do teachers change classrooms?
They don't change that often, you know, especially because this becomes their home and they really they kind of, you know, they don't like to move all their things. So they will change a classroom if they're actually changing a whole grade level that they're teaching, and especially if they're going from primary to secondary. So if you're a first grade teacher and you're going to teach second grade next year, you can probably stay in your same room. But if you're a first grade teacher and you're teaching 5th grade, you would actually have to move upstairs. Okay. Classroom is, as you can see where it's located, it's very isolated from all the other classrooms. Meredith, this is her room. She does have some natural surveillance. And on the other side of the windows, what you're seeing is the traffic on Route 10. So one of the things that was really surprising to me when I arrived at Chapman School was to learn that we're directly across the street from a prison. Who would have ever thought an elementary school would be, you know, built across from a prison? Although the police officers always tell me that if someone escapes from the prison, Diana, they're not coming to Chapman School. They're going the other way. So I have faith in that. But actually what worries me more about the location of the school is actually Route 10. Outside this window, if it were sunny out, you would see our playscape, and our primary playground is right there. And not too far from the playground is the fence that is right next to Route 10. And I do have concerns that one day a tractor trailer is going to come through that fence onto my playground. So it's really not the best place for an elementary school, for sure.
When this school was built, this was the front door
That's right.
of the school.
The front of the school was Route 10.
Wow.
And,
Yeah.
and everybody walked down Route 10, and there was a cross right here. And most of the children came into Chapman School from across Route 10.
Yeah.
What was the name of the school back then?
It's been Chapman as long as I've
Really?
known it.
Because I found drawings that used to have Cheshire Elementary School. So I don't know if this was one of the first elementaries, but yeah.
I keep asking Rich if he could just pave out
Yeah.
to Route 10 and the buses could come in that way and drop off on the
There's still a gate
side.
there, I think.
Because that would be
Yeah, not
great.
anymore.
Not anymore?
Because that would help our drop-off and pickup area. But, you know, our children play very close to Route 10, and the only barrier is a metal fence. And we're going to head upstairs to our second floor. So this is our science lab. And from what I understand, many years ago, this was a donation to the school where all of the materials for our science units and tables were donated, and this became an official science lab. This space is shared by the teachers. They sign up for different time blocks to use the room for when they're teaching science. But of course, because we're so limited in space, this room is also used for our AGP program. It's also used by instructional aides to service children in here. It's kind of become a room of all trades. It's become a room for multi-purposes, but it is slotted as the science room. Unfortunately, it's hard for the lower grades to always get up here, or the room has always been being utilized. So the teachers downstairs keep asking if we could get a science lab down there for them, but there is no space. There's just not room for it. But we are fortunate to have at least one science lab within the building. Any questions?
I was just admin possible through the Cheshire Ed Foundation years ago, and they have a fundraiser next Saturday, trivia night. I know several of you are signed up, thank you, so they do stuff like this for us. Do all the classrooms have smartboards, or?
Yes, they do. Yeah, and actually they're getting pretty old, and some of them are starting to just die out. So as they die out, they're going to be replaced by sort of a new flat screen board. It's not an actual smart board that will be on wheels, so it will be portable within the classroom. So they're being slowly phased out because many of them have lived their life and there's no life left in them to live. But to answer your question, yes, all the rooms do. So this is another shared space. This is our resource room on the second floor. Our special ed teacher shares this space with our speech pathologist and instructional IAs. That's why you'll see the different barriers to kind of create different sections of the room. Their challenge in here is, as they're working with one group, there's another group here, so sometimes just competing with noise can be a little challenging, but they have been sharing this space, all of those teachers, for many, many years, and they pretty much service the children that are up here on the second floor. So this whole second floor is 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. And I'm going to take you down the hall and show you one of our 6th grade classes and talk to you a little bit about 6th grade. So some of the teachers, are very competitive for who has the worst climate in their room. I always seem to find that this room is the warmest. And I can tell you that Chapman School is like a pizza oven. It's a brick building, and when it gets heated up, it's just, you could bake a pizza in here. The heat really stays. June is not so bad. It's August and September that are the worst months for us when school starts for the heat. There were a couple days where I was in this room, and when we really have those hot and humid days, Jeff is always checking in with us, asking us how the heat is in the classrooms, and we'll bring the thermometer in here. This room has easily read 95, 98 degrees. We keep the lights off. Sometimes we'll move the children into the hallway because the hallway is cooler than the classroom by far, and they'll actually sit in the hallway. We'll bring them into the gym. We'll bring them down to the library. We end up just moving the classes because the rooms are just much too hot. And you can probably feel it right now, how much hotter this room is than another classroom or another part of the building or just the hallway. So this is a great room to really make the point of our climate challenges. The other thing I want to just point out is in 6th grade at Chapman, our students do, they have 3 classrooms, and they do switch classrooms for content area. That also happens at the other elementary schools. So we do try to prepare them for that next step up to Dodd Middle School when they're switching classes and that middle school model. But I would like to give some voice to having 6th grade in an elementary school. I think there's some pros and cons to the 5th and 6th graders being in an elementary school. They don't have lockers. We try to create a middle school model for them, but it's not always easy. And I know from experience in my hometown, quite a few years ago, they built a new middle school, and the 5th grade, which was always at our elementary school, moved up to the middle school because it was a 5 through 8 middle school. And what was really wonderful about it is the 5th and 6th graders were able to then participate in middle school sports teams and after school extracurricular activities and clubs. At Chapman, we don't have, a Chapman basketball team or middle, we don't have that. We don't have those extracurricular activities after school like a middle school model could offer. So I think that's one disadvantage that our 5th and 6th graders don't have until they get to Dodd. And yet some of the advantages are, we have buddy classes and we use them as resources and, we keep them young for a little bit longer. But not having lockers and not having the independence that a middle school model would offer them is something that does not happen at Chapman School. And we're going to go down the stairs, and we're almost done. One more little section to show you. Grade classroom. This is one of our 2 first grade classrooms. The other first grade classroom was the other hallway, the very first hallway we started. So the 2 first grade teachers are very, very far apart, unfortunately. And that's because the other 3 classrooms that are close to this room are the kindergarten classrooms. So we kept the kindergarten class together, and then we had to use the extra room for first grade, but the other first grade is on the other side of the school. Next year, we will most likely have 3 first grade classrooms, which means 2 first grades will be on that side of the building, and this will still remain our first grade classroom. This room is where we have PPT meetings and 504 meetings and grade level meetings, parent meetings. It's not the largest conference room, and sometimes, we've got extra chairs over here when we have a lot of people that need to be present for a PPT or a 504. But the trickiest part of this room is on the other side of the wall is actually the music room. So sometimes we will be in the middle of a PPT or a 504, and there's some just great singing and music instruments going, and it gets really loud. So our secretaries try their best to try to schedule PPTs and 504s during the prep time of the music teacher. So we're not having a meeting at the same time as the music class, but of course that's not always possible. Parents have schedules and we want to make it convenient for them. The other space, which I'll show you when we go to the main office, is my office, and I have a small round table. So when this room is occupied, we will try to get 8 people around my table for another meeting. But ideally, one of the things I really wish Chapman had was a second conference room that was much, much larger. This room is also used many times. We don't have a sensory or an isolation room for children that sometimes escalate. So this is the only place that we can bring them, and the school psychologist and counselor will move chairs out of the way. This is a room that doesn't have a lot of things that can be thrown. So many times we may have a 504 scheduled, and then we realize there's a student in here that needs the room, and then we try to go to my office and squeeze in there. It gets crazy sometimes. But this is our one and only conference room. school counselor's office, and it'll be hard for us to all walk in at the same time, but when you walk in, you're going to take a right, and there's another room where the kiln is. And remember, the art room is in the other wing. So when the art teacher has things to go in the kiln, she has to go cut through the counselor's office to the other room to get to the kiln. And of course, sometimes our school counselor has children that she's working with, so that's not always the best because she has to interrupt them. But feel free to walk in so you can see table I told you about that we do some PPTs and 504 meetings. We get 8 to 10 people around that table, believe it or not, if we have to, when we can't use the conference room. But of course, in your new school plans, be sure you double the size of my office. And of course, many of you have been in our main office. It's very outdated, as you can see. It's very small, and we have very limited counter space. So unfortunately, this gets cluttered very quickly. We do our best to keep it as clean as we can, but it's very tight in here. The other thing too is, when our families are coming for meetings, and they're sitting here waiting, sometimes our office staff is on the phone, they're having conversations about children. Sometimes it's about a PPT that they're scheduling. So that close proximity, doesn't always offer the best confidentiality. People who are waiting are hearing things, and there's kind of no way really around it, where a bigger office would offer like a waiting spot that's a little bit more removed, and certainly would give us more space and counter for all that goes on in this area. So this is an incredibly small main office. Yes, and again, as you can see, they can only see the front door from that screen. They don't even have a visual really from the windows. So, once they buzz in, once you're here in the office, you can see that it's really hard for us to see where anyone goes. We just hope they come in the office and scan their ID and check into the office. Okay. And the only other room I haven't showed you yet is the music room, which I'll show you, and then we'll head back downstairs to the library. So we hear quite a bit of music through the main office, although sometimes it's piano playing, and we just love that. It sounds so lovely. So it depends what kind of music's going on in this room. It's either, kind of annoying music or it's really lovely music. But we do hear that through the office, and on the other side of that wall is the conference space.
Can I ask one quick question?
Yes.
Is this all grade levels use
All
this?
grade levels.
And do all grade levels use the band room that was downstairs?
Yes.
Or is that just upper?
Yes,
Okay.
no, that's all.
Okay.
So, and again, the band room is tough because there is no elevator, they're carrying big instruments, and they have to go down all the stairs there. And it's tricky because the music rooms they're so far apart. So the band teacher and the music teacher are on different floors. They're just very far apart from each other. Where ideally, you would sort of have like a music area in the school where band and music and chorus would all be in the same vicinity. The other thing too is we have chorus risers, what we use for our concerts. They're stored downstairs, but they always have to be brought up the stairs into the gym to set up for conferences because we just don't have a place to store them. Okay.
There was room on that stage.
Well, we could throw them on the stage. I did that good of a job.
I have a question. What's the biggest complaint you get from the parents here?
From the parents?
Yeah.
Yeah, parking is a complaint. When we have school events, whether it's open house, promotion, the music concerts, There's absolutely no parking. The parking that's on the side of the building and in the front of the building, 90% of that is taken up by staff. Once all the teachers are here in their parking spaces, there's a handful of spaces for just daily business and visitors throughout the day, but nothing for like an event. Field day is a nightmare. They park on the street. We are lucky, we have the parking lot of the church across the street that the church is generous enough to let us use. We do our best with some events like open house, we stagger the time. So we do like kindergarten through 3rd grade, we do an early session, and then we do the upper grades a later session to try to eliminate some of the parking headaches. But for things like promotion and Veterans Day, I have to tell you, Veterans Day for the handicap accessibility, we have some veterans that we invite who are in their 90s. And we always try to have coffee and muffins for them when they get here so that they can be with the other veterans and for us to thank them for being with us that day. The problem is that some of them can't get up the stairs or they can't come down to the stairs for us to have a reception for them. We did it on the stage one year, and we had helped some of them up the stairs to the stage. So the veterans had a hard time because they really needed more handicap parking that was closer to the building to help get them in. So that's definitely a complaint that we get. But at the same time, I will tell you, Chapman School, as you can probably sense, is just a classic neighborhood school. And it is loved in this community. And when Marlene had told me 2 years ago when I asked her where the elevator was, and she said no elevator, and I said, well then, what do students do? And she said they get on their bottom and they, take one step at a time, and they go up the staircase on their bottoms. And I understand that now because even when parents are here, if they have a student with a disability or they're on crutches, we have the ability to offer them another elementary school, right? But they don't want to go to another elementary school. They want to be here at Chapman. They love that it's a neighborhood school. They love the size of it. Our size makes us special, there's no question. And I think that's the charm of Chapman for sure. Any other questions? Well, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed the tour.
Thank you very
I
much.
certainly
Thank
enjoyed
you.
having you.
Much appreciated, thank you.
Sure.
Any other comments? General, everyone's questions are answered regarding Chapman? If not, we're going to roll into subcommittee reports, and we'll start with the RFP subcommittee since they had a little meeting tonight.
Yes,
An
so
activity.
the RFP was posted on the 10th. I had a meeting tonight for the non-mandatory session. Had a couple vendors there for that. And now we're just waiting for the due date, I believe it's the 12th of March.
Good. All right. Any questions? Chuck? No? Okay, how about the staff input session subcommittee? Trish?
Okay. We've held numerous meetings. Anne-Marie, Jen, myself, Rob's been able to come to a few of them. So far, we had 2 sessions at the high school, one at Humiston, looking at the alternative ed program there, one at Dodd, one at Doolittle, and then we were here today at Chapman. Tomorrow we're over at Highland, so we're nearing the end. We were initially wondering if we were going to get a large turnout. Well, we've been extremely pleased. Teachers have come out in large numbers. In fact, the high school was interesting because we had a session early in the morning, and then in the afternoon we thought we wouldn't get anybody, but we had standing room only, and some people decided to come back again because they had new things that they wanted to talk about. So we've been doing minutes, and poor Marilyn here has been writing away like crazy and up in the middle of the night doing minutes and sending them out. So I hope people do take an opportunity to take a look at those. A lot of the discussion is the things that you've heard as you've been traveling around, issues regarding maintenance, roof leaks, windows, things like that, size of classrooms, lack of storage. We have had conversations regarding the 6th grade. The Dodd people felt unanimously that they wanted to see the 6th grade in the middle school. The Doolittle people did also. Chapman people were a little more hesitant on it. They were kind of talking a little bit about the pros and cons of that whole issue. We found the program issues, particularly at the high school and middle school, were really serious. And we're going into in great detail. When we're all done, we'll put all those out in front of you. But the high school, Dodd, and Humiston, and I don't want Humiston to get left out because there was a really wonderful, committed group of teachers there working with high school students. They're very, very proud of the work they're doing, but the facility that they're doing in is really very lacking. And I've been surprised, to be honest with you, and we saw it here today, at the number of buildings that we have handicap accessibility problems with. And I just think in this day and age, to have students, parents, teachers who can't easily access all parts of a building is a real problem. And I think it's something that we very seriously have to deal with. But that's where we're at right now, and when we finish these last couple of buildings, we'll put together a more detailed report for the group and get back to you.
Thanks, Rich. Yeah, they've been very good sessions. And Sylvia, for the out of district, oh, I'm sorry, Andy, did you have a question?
Oh, I just had a question for Rich on that committee. Did you get comments also at each of the schools about the situation with the traffic flow?
Well, it
And
depended
so-
on the school.
yeah.
High school spoke, well, actually, in most of, yeah. High school has some serious issues about the amount of traffic in and out, the danger of some of the kids being left off on Route 10, the kids crossing Route 10. Dodd, obviously, that was a major topic of concern there, in that the parking is so limited, the buses coming out in a very small rural area there, or housing area. Little bit at Humiston, not too much at Doolittle. Doolittle's in good shape. And then you heard today at Chapman that there are questions. What should be done in any school when you're designing it is you should be separating out completely the bus loop from the parent loop and have two different drop-off areas, two different areas where you're entering the building. And some of that could be taken care of with construction, but we also have some facilities that have very limited space. And so that'll be something our architects or our reps will have to really take a look at to see what potentially could be done.
Thank you.
Any other questions for that group? No? Sylvia, out of district
My turn.
service?
I was not able to attend many of your question sessions, but I did attend today, and I've read all the minutes. And the questions you've gotten have been very helpful for our out-of-district meetings. We're starting Friday morning in North Haven, where they've built a new high school and middle school. We're going to be touring that on Friday. Following week, we are going to Windsor. Is it East? Is it South Windsor?
South
Windsor. To see they're in many projects that are in various stages, so we're going to take a look at those. And we have several other schools on our list, and the list will grow as we get going. Among them maybe, and we have not confirmed with any of these districts, but we're hopeful about going to see Meriden, Southington, North
Guilford.
Haven, Windsor, Guilford. I think Guilford will be two of them next week, perhaps, if we can get that solidified. So we're going with questions that are going to be grouped in sort of general topics, mostly about the process of how you determined in your project whether to increase storage space or classroom space, and so having these questions from all the teachers have been very helpful to see, for us to ask from those communities that we're visiting. We're hoping that we will get some good feedback from them. How did they manage the project? Who managed it for them? What were the downsides? What were the things that were problems? what were the things that they did, which they may have thought in retrospect that maybe they should have done differently, what things do they want to do, how are they looking forward to the next 20 years? So it's those kinds of questions. So it's been helpful to tour these facilities to see how ours compare with the new facilities we're going to see. So we're excited about seeing them, and we'll be off on the road for the next couple of weeks, probably 2 or 3 times a week to visit.
Right. I do know in a couple of the school staff input meetings, teachers did ask us if we're looking at other districts, and when we told them, I'm glad we had the answer that we were, because they were really happy that we were going to schools outside of Cheshire and looking at what's been done in other districts.
We've requested of those school systems, before we go, some general information questions with a letter, and then we'll follow that up with more in-depth questions that particularly pertain to our situation. See how we do, so.
Any questions, Sylvia? Jen?
Just because we're going to other schools, is this open to anyone on the committee to be able to attend, or just the subcommittee that's going?
We have to limit it to how many people.
Yeah,
What did we decide? We had to.
In working with the other superintendents, basically kind of a smaller group
Yeah.
that we were going to bring in.
Because
So-
we're going to be during school hours,
Yeah,
so, yeah.
It's during the school day.
Yeah. So we're trying to
Be
limit it to
disruptive.
the committee for the moment, but.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would just say, Jen, to that, I mean, once, the members of that subcommittee should get priority.
Yes.
But if people are missing and there's like,
Mhm.
the school is open to have 5 people and there's 1 or 2 from the
Right.
larger
Yeah.
committee, I think there certainly should be able to have that happen.
Thank you.
Are you just looking at new construction or?
We're looking at all
So there's-
remodels,
there's a number.
renovations to as new construction, combining school districts, redistricting, all of those things are part of those visits. So with those, why we're selecting different schools, different owners reps, different types of renovations, all of that. So we get a good cross-section of the kinds of facilities that we're looking at. So if you have suggestions, or if you know someplace that you'd like us to go visit, we're open. I think that will help us in choosing our owner's rep, to be able to ask questions and get some answers from them, knowing what we've seen on the trip.
No, good,
Of
that's great.
the renovations that you're looking at, or maybe you don't know yet, are they just, they put an air handling unit on the roof, or is it like a total
No, most of
renovation
them
like
are
a
pretty
70-year-old
significant
unit?
renovated new, I think, is that
Yeah,
correct?
yeah.
They're right from.
More substantial renovation.
Right. Meriden was one, I don't know if I mentioned that as one we were gonna visit, but if you've seen those, you've gone by Platt High School, and that was,
Yeah.
I mean, it's schools of similar age as well.
Mhm.
Rob?
Can we just confirm how many people can go and that we're proactive on that? I'd hate to have people
Great.
not go because they thought they couldn't and then only 2 people from the committee showed up and we could have had other people go.
Well, I think we've tried to limit it to, Jeff is going, correct? And
Yes.
And there's 4 committee members, so that would be 5. Are we bringing anybody other than that?
I don't know if one of the committee members is.
Right, but
I'm
if we
also
had,
ex
if we had
officio, so I
if we had
assume
a
I
full
can go.
committee, there would be 5, correct?
If there's
If we
a
had a
spot,
full
absolutely.
Right, so we could bring 5 people. So currently, for Friday,
Yeah, I'll
we have
confirm
4.
for Friday that, if we could bring 5 or
We
how
could-
many they want us to
We
bring.
might have one more spot.
Yeah, I'll confirm. I mean, we could have 3 more spots. I'll just confirm.
Yeah, 'cause if there's room,
So you need to
people can go.
confirm with the superintendent as
Yeah,
to what you think
yeah.
would be suitable.
Whatever they think is adequate for them.
So if you find that we have more space to bring more people.
Yeah, I can notify Arnett.
Who would
or
you
something.
notify?
I'll
Would you
let Arnett
notify
know.
Anne
Yeah,
Marie?
well,
and
Arnett
let-
could send something,
or Arnett.
if Jeff lets
She can send
Arnett know,
something out.
Arnett can send
Okay.
something out that says there's room on this
Perfect.
tour, so if anyone's interested,
Mhm.
available,
It's fine.
yes, I agree,
But at a minimum, you're getting the subcommittee,
yes.
and does that include me or no?
We weren't including you, but we could include you.
Well, only
Yeah, right.
because I'm ex officio of all committees, so I'd like
Right.
the ability to be able to go if I can.
I-
I try to get to almost as
Sure.
many meetings as
And I
possible,
recognize
so
that. I
if
don't
we're
know.
asking to have the committee on, I'd like to be part of it, because technically I am part of it, so.
I think our biggest concern, Rob, was not to keep people out of it, but just not to affect the daily functioning of the
I get it.
school. That's all. So if that makes the 5th person, I have no objection if anybody else does. I mean,
I'm just making sure
right.
we can maximize the number.
Yep,
I'm not
great,
trying
yep.
to
no.
force them to give us a bigger number, but if
No.
they let us have 6, I think the more people can go, the better job we're all gonna do for the community.
Right,
That's
right.
my point.
Yep. Well, I would say that he could be included in this. as
Yeah,
well. Yeah,
like I
right,
said, I'll
especially
confirm
now,
with
we don't have,
Patrick
Matt is not
tomorrow.
here.
Yeah, Matt's
so-
not here.
Right.
so.
Yeah, you'd only be 5 right now anyway.
Yeah, right,
so-
exactly.
But I want to make sure others have
Yes.
ability to go if there's
Yep.
open spaces. I think that's important.
Yep,
Okay,
agreed.
then you can let us know if there's room.
Will do.
All right, great, thank you. Any other questions for the subcommittee activity? All right, then we are going to move on to any public comments. I'm sorry I have my back to you, but are there any public comments? By group, nothing. All right. Any other general questions, conversation among committee members? I guess. Peter Talbot has a question.
Thank you, Marilyn. I like being announced. Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a coworker who is a resident of South Windsor, and we were discussing what South Windsor had done, and so he provided me with this bulletin that went out to every household in the town that I'm gonna hand off to probably Sean or Jeff to have it included into the Google Docs so that people can look at it. It's called the Community Update, January 2020, Elementary Schools Master Plan Phase 3. But it's got some great information in it, and it may be helpful as we move forward.
Great.
So
Thank you.
I'll pass that along. Yep.
And Peter, we're going to South Windsor.
I know. So yeah, so it would be good for you guys to look
like
at
to see
prior
a
to
copy
your
of it.
visit.
Right.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Did Sean want it?
I'll upload it to Google
Rob, do you
Docs.
mind if the only thing I think maybe is on other people's minds here too, obviously with Paul Bowman leaving the town council, he also leaves this committee. I know you mentioned that Don, once he goes to the town council approval, will be joining
Correct.
and picking up. Is there anything else that we need to be aware of as part of that process?
No, the only thing that affects this committee with Paul's resignation is another council member. So we decided it'll be Don Walsh, and we'll get that done at the next meeting.
Okay, all right, thank you. If there is nothing else, I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Could always count on Peter.
Second or 10, even if council.
All in favor?